Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by PILMA. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Hey, Grow Your Law Firm listeners. This is Gracie House from PILMA, and I'm excited to pop on today and share with you a special invitation. If you're serious about growing your law firm this year, you need to be at PILMA Super Summit, happening May 20th through 23rd in San Antonio, Texas. For more than a decade, we have brought together the best minds in legal marketing, management, intake, and operations, and now AI for one purpose: helping law firm leaders grow and scale their law firms. Attendees leave our conference with a real plan, actionable tools, strategies, and resources, not a brain clouded with conflicting messages and ideas. This isn't a conference where you sit and listen to theory all day. You will hear from real attorneys who are sharing what's working and what's not working when it comes to marketing and managing their 8-figure law firms. You'll be in breakout sessions built specifically for your role: COOs, marketing directors, firm owners, managing partners, leadership teams, so the right people get the right strategies. You'll have the opportunity to workshop real challenges, ask questions of seasoned marketers and leadership experts, and walk away knowing exactly what to implement and who owns it when you get back. We're going deep on AI, and not in a conceptual way. In our AI breakout, you'll have your laptop open, building, testing, and creating alongside experts. At our recent AI for PI event, attendees literally built their own custom AI tools during one of our breakout sessions. That is the level of hands-on that we are about. You'll also get to connect with attorneys and law firm owners who are scaling fast, sharing what's working right now, and building relationships that last long after the conference ends. The networking is intentional, the content is actionable, and the agenda is packed. If you want clarity, momentum, and strategy you can actually execute, join us at Super Summit this May in San Antonio. Registration is open now. Check the link in the show notes and secure your spot today.
Hey, it's Jenna, Membership Growth Advisor with PILMA. If you're serious about growing your law firm this year, don't miss your chance to book a free law firm growth strategy session with me. We'll break down what's holding you back, identify the biggest opportunities in your firm, and map out the next steps to accelerate your growth. No pressure, just real strategy and direction tailored to you. Click the link in the show notes to schedule your free session.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure of returning Mr. Seth Price with a BluShark, and also the proud owner of a humongous law firm up in the D.C., Maryland area. Welcome back, my friend.
Thanks. And it's always good to be here. This has been PILMA's been the home where we've, we got a 50 lawyer firm now, and I know we wouldn't have it but for the things we've learned over the years at PILMA.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. But, you did it. That's the deal. It's always, you can have the best knowledge and everything in the world, but you got to execute. And that's something you're good at.
And also humble enough to know that it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Because everybody watching this, all of your tribe, you're good until that key person gives you notice in, first quarter of the year, or, it's all good till there's an ethics issue or a case that you thought was a dead bang winger and you already banked the money, turns out to have a flaw in it. So it's a hustle. And I feel very fortunate. I think that stuff that the fundamentals that PILMA has preached as far as intake, tech stack, marketing, getting those fundamentals in place makes everything else that much more viable.
So as we enter 2026, I've had a couple of mastermind meetings, virtual ones this month already, just check-ins. And this question keeps coming up. Well, Ken, what do you think we should do as far as making sure we got our bases covered for AI searches to make sure we come up in, as an answer as a law firm to pick if they're looking for a PI firm or whatever it might be, a workers' comp firm, a disability firm, whatever. So, you being an SEO, always a lawyer, but also having an SEO company for years that has really done some great work. And what are you telling your clients? What's the deal on this? Because I hear so much stuff, man, and nobody knows who to believe anymore, to be honest with you, Seth.
Well, look, I think the fundamentals are still generally working, right? If we talked in 5 years, will the fundamentals have changed? Yes. Right now, the piece that many of the people in your tribe, the PILMA tribe, mean the small to medium-sized PI firms, right? The thing that still works and gets the ROI before anything else, in my opinion, is local search. You have your website, You build it up, you build authority, the stuff, the traditional SEO with offices. Put the offices out there and then hustle, get the reviews. If you follow that formula, right now, that's 90% of the digital market. We all want the next shiny thing. We do. I do. Everybody does. And if
Yeah.
you want that, there's a playbook for it. It's one that, like BluShark, for example, has its own, you pay X amount of money. We optimize the things that show up in AI search. There are things you could be doing on your own, investing in Reddit, going back to directories like Justia, like Avo that you haven't looked at in a decade, putting yourself in different places. There's a playbook for it. But I also know, and you know this, how many of the people in the mastermind are looking for the fairy dust? Our buddy Ted Sink, he and I always talk about fairy dust. Like, it's great and it can work. It sort of like keeps you on your toes, but the way you build a business is fundamentals. And while over time AI results may expand, they also, what the AI quote unquote algorithm is pulling may change. There's no guarantee that Reddit is going to remain a viable place to gain traction. Wikipedia has always been, positive, but we don't know what that future holds as far as what it is. What I do know is that if you're a firm that's getting 25 cases a month and you say, hey, I want to get to 35, 40, 60, 100, that's my goal, that short term, the AI algorithm is unlikely to bring you that the business where you invest this much money, you get this much out. That firms that have done a multi-office strategy, focusing on LSAs, building review count, building authority, I think in the end will do fine with wherever Gemini and ChatGPT end up, that those things will come together. But right now, if 90% of the market is searching in one place, I know we want to be everywhere, we want to be cutting edge, but making sure you get the fundamentals, because that's going to make you money for the foreseeable future. Again, not ignoring where we're going, but understanding that if you were to figure out how to get cases from ChatGPT, but didn't have the fundamental cases from local search, you'd make a lot more money from local search today than you would from gaming the ChatGPT answers.
So what I'm hearing you saying is the best ROI. It's nice to do that and everything, but that's probably only 10, at tops 20%. So go to where it's like, what is it, Johnny Wanamaker? So why do I rob the banks? I go, because they got the money. They go where the money is, and the money is in local search. I mean,
at the moment, that could change over time, but right now, to me, and looking at, your avatar is not the John Morgan. It's the guy who's got a partner or two. Maybe he's a solo. He's got a handful of lawyers. He's got 3 to 10 lawyers. And these guys are competing against the big boys. But the thing about local search that gives you an advantage is you're able to sort of put your offices where other people are not. And the piece that I have continued to focus on is, if you play that game, that it has 2 benefits. One, you come up in local search, right? When people are searching, that much of the AI search, while some people, and people like you and I might play around with ChatGPT to see who's the best lawyer somewhere. But for most people, when they need a lawyer, how are they searching? Are they using some outside the box algorithm? Or are they going to what's tried and true? They see a 3-pack, they see reviews, they can make their choices. Look, is Google going to layer local search into the AI searches? I'm sure it will, but that's why I think doubling down on what's been traditional local search up until this point is going to benefit, because Google has a protected interest with this user-generated content of their reviews. And when you start pulling things from areas that are not Google reviews, when you look at Avo stuff that has been dormant for a decade, though it's crap, and that the user experience is not there. And we see stuff. I'll give you, as we record this, and who knows what it'll be when we go live, Google's been effing around with local search, taking phone numbers out of the search results. It's kind of stupid. You'd have to go to the website to find a number to click. It's not a good user experience. I see that. We'll see how this ages, whether that's going to bounce back or if that's the new normal. But there's always going to be change. The question is, and we saw that with social, right? Think about it, for how long have we talked about social at a PILMA summit? And if you had invested in all the guys that came before that, it was geofencing. How many guys were selling geofencing? That was your road to riches. We're going to geofence the emergency room and we're going to make all our money and retire. And that way we just meet Ken in Hawaii for his masterminds and not actually have to work. And I think that with each of these things, we got to look at it. You want to understand it, but you want to see what is the potential revenue from it right now and put the resources in. Today, there are people that have successfully geofenced, but if you had invested in 10 years of people that raised their hand saying it's time to geofence, you would have lost money all that time. Same with, connected TV, right? We're finally starting to see people that get a return on investment from non-skippable ads. Okay, great. But for the last 5 years, people that invested in it lost their shirts and the people stayed in broadcast didn't. And I think it's great to sort of see what's next. You don't want to be left behind. But at the same time, if something makes money fundamentally, why are you turning it down? If the money's in the bank, why are you robbing the 7-Eleven?
If you can, we got a lot of listeners now. They tell me that we're getting like 6,000 to 8,000 downloads a week. So not all Pilma people. I know our people know what you're talking about, but kind of explain this setting up the offices, because I'd say 90% of our members do this now, and it's working. I mean, setting up sellout offices.
Right.
And getting reviews.
Got you. So as of about 3 years ago, Google created something called the proximity update, which meant they essentially added the words near me to every search, right? Now, I didn't like this because we dominated some markets, right? And I have buddies, I got a friend in Chicago. He owns Chicago, right? Great. We own DC. And all of a sudden, Google said, you know what? It's like ordering a pizza. You don't want a pizza from 40 minutes away. You want a pizza that's within 10 or 15 minutes so it gets to you hot. Doesn't make a lot of sense for legal, but it's what they decided to do. And so basically, they give a huge preference for search to the people closest to the person searching. It's part of that local algorithm. And because of that, you can't win an entire city with one single location in the local search in getting into the 3-pack. It's not going to happen. And so if you have a geography, whether it be Albuquerque, whether it be Houston, whatever it is, making sure that you aren't by yourself in one little office, that's great. You can do fine. But what's better than one is 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever it is that you can do with your resources. There are rules to it, right? It can't be, and depending on where you are, I see in Florida, there's so much fraud that Google really has cracked down, and you better be dotting your I's and crossing your T's there. I've seen people actually knock on doors of fake satellite offices and turn them in. But generally, what it means, it's an office that has a lease, that has a sign, that's open for business. I look at 3 things. Does Google like it? Does the local bar like it? Are you going to get any sanctions? And is there a cringe factor? Is it a tattoo parlor that you're claiming that you have your office in? Not a good idea. I literally had somebody set one up in a daycare center. I'm like, come on, guys, especially now with all the breaking news out of Minnesota. So please, if you're doing it, it takes some effort and some time. That's one of the things at BluShark. We sit down, we have a primer on it to send people, but before somebody looks at an office, you have to decide, is it an appropriate place on several levels? What's the level of competition? If there are 3 lawyers in downtown Orlando with 1,000 reviews or more each, and you're starting yourself there with a new office starting at 0, and you get a total of 20 clients a month, you're never going to be able to compete. You may need to go 30, 40 minutes into the suburb to find a place where the competition is low enough that you can survive. Secondly, there's an odd gloss on this, which is that Google only allows one type of law firm in a given building within a certain proximity to that. And that if you are doing personal injury or you're doing comp or whatever it is, and there's another person doing that area of law in the building you want to be in, like, you hope you can beat them and eventually be number 1, but there's risk, because if they're already sitting there with 95 reviews, you're going to have to get beyond them, maybe by a bunch, because the age of the Google business profile piece has an issue. So if you're starting with a new one, you're at a competitive disadvantage to somebody who's been there for a while. So just like websites age matter, so does the age of the Google business profiles, which shows up in the 3-pack. So it's not rocket science, but there are nuances. And if you ignore them, it's going to be a lot more painful. And I've personally experienced it. I mean, competing in markets like the very competitive Florida markets, where people are doing really outside the box, dubious things, it's really, really tough. Other areas are a lot easier. And sort of, well, one of the things we do at BluShark is we look at things, green, yellow, red. Red, you better be ready to go to battle. Yellow, it's tough. But and when you're thinking of your mix, because every Google business profile you start with starts from review 0, and you understand. I mean, I've sat down with a firm, I remember it was in Westchester. It was 3 able-bodied males sat there, and between 2 offices had 17 reviews. And if you ignore the reviews, you will die on the vine. Just will. And we talk about it. We talk about intake, and we talk about the holes in the bucket there. It's no different here. You need to sort of, everything you do as a business owner, and I tell people this, and I think the number is low. I would tell you conservatively that you get $1,000 of revenue for every review you generate. I think in most good PI firms, it's $2,000 worth of revenue. If you get 100 reviews and have a new satellite office, that's conservatively $200,000 in gross revenue. If you were, God forbid, to get 1,000 reviews, I have no doubt you're going to have 7 figures in revenue from that. Like, if you pay your dues with SEO and you add reviews to that 1-2 combination makes money, and you see it. When you look at your clients that are crushing it, that have moved up, I would guess very, very few of those have ignored the review game. That most of the people that are moving from your low level to mid higher level.
I call that low hanging fruit. That's the first thing when I talk to a new member at Pilma. I ask them how many reviews you got and how many offices you got. A couple follow-up questions though.
Please.
And I think this is okay, but I want to verify it with you. But it's okay to go outside to another town and rent an office space from a criminal lawyer or a domestic lawyer. You can be in the same building. You just can't have another PI lawyer if you're a PI firm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of lawyers do that. I've seen lawyers go out and actually buy houses in town and put their sign up, and they write it off. There's an investment. You know what I'm saying? If you got the money. I mean, it just depends on why you want to do it. I mean,
100%. Look, I've been preaching I'm amazed at, again, how many people, you have 2 different ways. If you have a friend who does criminal law, great. But I speak to a lot of people. I don't know anybody else. Great. Go rent the freaking place. It's not going to break you. It's the cost of doing business. But the other piece, and I think you'd get this, second question for you when you speak to people: how many reviews do you have, and what's your score? I love cities. I grew up in New York. I live outside DC. I take a lot of Ubers. If you get an Uber driver with a 5, great. 4.9, 4.8, maybe even 4.7, you're going to be fine. If you see a 4.6, there's a pretty good chance it's going to be a bad ride. 4.5, it's going to be disaster. And 4.4 below, I guarantee you, it will be hellish. It's going to smell. The car's not in good shape. Uber tries to get those guys out. I think you need to look at it the same way for your score. You got a 5, 4.9, even 4.8. Okay. 4.6.
Yeah, 4.8 or above, I think is good.
Again, 4.7, not good, and it's going to hurt compared to the others. I am seeing people 4.6 and below, they're not showing anymore. It's too competitive. And that if you're, God forbid, below a 4.5 or below, that is a red flag. Now, if you're in the restaurant business or the hotel business, it's not like that. But in the lawyer space, you can curate it, right? You're basically asking for the reviews. You're hopefully smart enough to know not to ask it from the person who's screaming at you. And you're going to get some bad reviews. There's no doubt. But having a process to follow, first, doing great work, right? You preach that, having the sausage making there. Secondly, asking for the reviews. We can talk about that all day. We'll talk about that later. But when a bad review comes in, who's calling them? Are you the owner of the firm? No, you're an a-hole. Have your top ops person. Who's going to call that person and say, I'm sorry, I know you felt you didn't get a call back. We often, half the time, it's an existing client who's just anxious because they haven't got their money yet. And they're half the time, these are things that a phone call can resolve. Not always. And so that if there's a process, because every negative review that you get, think about it when you do the math, there are formulas you can use for this, but when you get to scale and you have like hundreds or 1,000 review plus, when you get to eliminate a bad review, take so many more good ones to get that score moved, that being cognizant, and when you start to see bad reviews come in, not burying your head in the sand and understanding that, is there something wrong with what my people are doing? Because, if you have the paralegal that's being snippy to people or not returning calls, happens to all of us, all of a sudden your score drops, that will lose you money.
Talking about reviews, and you can verify this, I heard that Google has changed it down to where people can do anonymous reviews. That worries me. How do you feel about it?
Look, I see it two ways. One, it can worry you, understood. Second, for a lot of people that have criminal practices, it's a godsend, because
Okay.
if somebody survives a DUI or a sexual assault charge, they don't really want their name out there. So there's some
Right.
positives in the digital marketing community. But for the PI lawyers, yeah, it's a risk factor. But everything else, it's making sure I have not seen it be a huge problem to date. It's not like we're
Okay.
seeing, I got 300 clients. We are not seeing people take advantage of it. I hope you can do it the other way, which is you can use it because look, talking about reviews, it is always, there's a element, as my kids would say, of cringe, where you're saying to somebody, can you leave me a review? Someone's a happy client at the end, great, but you need to be comfortable in your own skin asking for it. And I feel that there are going to be people, and I've had personal friends that I've done pro bono work for their kid that was really significant. And we did amazing work, got great results, sent them a review link, never got a review. I'm hoping that the fact that you can ask somebody, and if it's a buddy or college friend, a vendor or whatever, that you can use that anonymous piece to make it a little bit cleaner. And I'm hoping you can use the positive, because there will be negative, sure. But I think that, like everything else, there's a negative to it, but there's also an opportunity.
Another thing, and I don't know if you can still do this. I don't know if the guy that told me he did it was telling me the truth. But so he opened up a new office, but he had another satellite office, and he had like 200 reviews. And somehow he was able to transfer. He closed down that office and transferred the reviews from like that office to the new office.
You basically
So,
move the office.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it
And
was in a whole different town. I mean, it's like 100 miles away.
I mean, look, the further you go through a process, they're going to want to see it. They may want pictures, they may want video. It's a thing. Sometimes it goes through right away. Sometimes it's a real pain. As I said, in Florida, watch out. It's going to be a really hard process. But all of that said, yes, there are definite strategies. I've seen clients that come to us with, I'll tell you one I came up with the other day. Somebody came to us like a 3.5 score, 3.5. You realize how bad that is? And I was like, they wanted to keep their main office, but I think the person had done some guardian ad litem work in the PI shop, and which means you're sort of taking kids from parents, which people don't like, or you're advocating for the kid in a custody dispute, so to speak. And so they got a bunch of bad reviews. So I'm like, you know what we're going to do? Move that office somewhere else and start a brand new brand, because you're not going to come out, you're not digging out of a 3.5 to have a score that's meaningful, that's going to make you money. And at the end of the day, what Ken is about is making money for the Pillman members and the listeners of this podcast. And if you're sitting there with a 3.5, you need intervention, business intervention. You're not digging into it. You have a problem, and you can wait and hope, but it's not going to work. So that you need a stable brand. And again, what you said earlier, 4.9, 4.8, great. I don't love to see the 4.7s. I don't. I think it's a risk factor. And what you're also starting to see is Google isn't showing it. It was a conversion factor, where you might have 1,000 reviews at 4.5 and somebody else has 20 or 40 out of 5.0. But Google is starting to say, you know what? We understand there's a difference, and that's too low a number for us to show, given the other firms that are available to us to pick for that 3-pack.
Yeah. Are they still doing sponsor ads for the 3-pack?
They are. And in fact, that's one of the things that, again, I don't want to talk too much about, because I'm not sure how it's going to play out by the time we do this, but there's a moment in time right now where phone numbers are not in the 3-pack, but the sponsored ads have their phone numbers. So let's see how that plays out. But there, Google says do no evil, but there's always it's always how does Google keep its stock prices high, and they're very very good at it. And look, I look at it as for me, I enjoy it. I think it's a fun game to figure it out. But it is one that if you ignore it and you don't figure out a way to generate reviews, you have bad review, bad score. These are ones that are going to take you out of the game. And given what we talked about, that for many of the listeners of this podcast, the goal is taking a modest firm and making it X% better. These are the fundamental steps, which goes back to would I love to have you in AI search results? Yes. And we know how to do it. We have a product. You pay X dollars. We put you in the places that are most likely to be found, and people are now getting AI results. Do you remember the answer when people should I pay for social? There was a year at the summit where there were like 17 guys selling you $5,000 a month social package. Now, there are people that have cracked the social code, right?
Yeah.
Top Dog's done a great job. Other people have done, Ted Sink done a great job putting himself out there on socials. Genuine videos, yeah, you'll make money. Paying some guy $5,000 to post National Secretary Day and National Redhead Day, it's not making you any money. It's just not. So the question is the money that you're paying for that, if you get, is it a good cost? Is the money and resources you put into beating the AI algorithm worth it? But if you have $5,000 to spend, how many cases are you going to get from the AI algorithm, and how many cases are you going to get from the traditional, local search?
I would think, and I'm just asking this because I don't know, I don't have the expertise, but I would think, I'm just thinking logically and analytically, is that the more that you're out, for AI, I would think the more that you're mentioned in other like publications, newspapers, articles, videos, on TV, newspapers, probably, you said something a while ago, Wikipedia, stuff like that with authority, or magazines that's got authority, I would think that have a bigger, I don't know.
You're exactly right, Ken. And so the good news is, like, for as long as you've known me, I've talked about links, right? Backlinks,
Yeah.
right? If I did an article on Pilma, Ken, can you make sure you link back to my law firm, right? Now, the fact that I'm part of an advisory committee for you, for example, they're going to see that in total. It can be read. There are certain places that are more authoritative. Things like Best Lawyers used to be like, hey, it's a stupid pay-to-play thing. Now, not so much anymore. The word best, very valuable. Super lawyers, right? Thomson Reuters bought some guy's directory. If Ken had the Pilma, best lawyer in the world directory, Thomson Reuters could have bought you. So, the idea is we are now seeing things which they are looking for reasons to put somebody ahead of somebody else. I'm recommending that people start looking at their bios. How are you writing it? Before it's like, where'd you go to school, this and that? That's helpful. But all these nonsensical awards that were out there. I know that one of our friends once got his parrot or something, one of the top lawyer awards from one of these second tier groups of people. All of a sudden, that nonsense matters for the moment. Like, it's not a good user experience. I assume over time it will sift out. But at the same time, like Wikipedia, love it, hate it, it's a beast to get into, demonstrates some form of authority, and that the average schmuck lawyer is not in there. So that's positive. As much as I may poo-poo I don't poo-poo it, I'm just saying best lawyers, super lawyers, they have curated themselves to the point where they have a pretty solid list of lawyers. Lawyers want to get in it. I had some lawyers in my firm who didn't get there. They were furious with me. Something, again, we could talk about a lot of stuff. Super lawyers historically has been on a point system to get in, and being the rising star was pretty doable. But at age 40, you're kicked out. You're only in the super lawyer place. So very often at age 40, 41, 42, you may not make the next level for a year or two until enough juice gets in your bucket, enough points are there. And similarly, with best lawyers, there's a certain number of years that you're in their junior category, and at some point you pop out. And we happen to have a couple lawyers in that, purgatory period. But understand that all of a sudden those things, I think, used to be a nice, and now you want to have those because ethically, you can't say you're a best lawyer, but for whatever reason, these ethics people are perfectly fine with you saying that you are Thompson Lawyer Super Lawyers or the best lawyer voted by best lawyers. I mean, so it's a semantic game, but in the AI world, those things matter, at least for the time being. And that is if you say who's the best lawyer and you have your name is all over these directories, that is a big thing. So I've been rewriting about us pages for the firm, discussing super lawyers at the firm, best lawyers at the firm, all of those different all those local newspapers that have those contests. It's a way to ethically get those words into the database that the AI algorithms are looking at.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, podcasting, like if you do a podcast, if you're a lawyer, you do a podcast and you kind of run it through your website, I guess. Is that got juice to it, or is that just do it because you love doing it, don't do it to make money from it?
It depends. Like it depends who you are, what you're trying to do. In the B2B space, for Ken, I love it, right? You have me on, you have people listening. They may be future mastermind members, they may come to a summit, they may just become buy the Pilma merch because they love that so much. Whatever it is, you've created a tribe and it keeps people there. I love it for BluShark and things like that. On the lawyer side, I think it's good for authority, but you better love it and you better have a good reason for doing it. I've seen some people do a great job in the community where they bring on different high profile people. And to me, there are multiple reasons for the podcast, right? One is because you can invite guests on and get to know them. This is, if I called you and said, Ken, I want to talk to you for 45 minutes, you would probably kick the can for a good 6 months, before we had a block this long that was solid. I'm being facetious, but you get the point. Yeah. There are people that you can network with in a way that you could never network with otherwise. So from a business development point of view, of a referral shop, I think it's genius. You bring on medical providers, you bring on, might be the people from funeral homes, you could bring in tow people. If you have a reason that you want somebody there as a potential referral source, great. If it's somebody who's just high profile in the community and they have a podcast and you're going to get to their audience, all of that is great, but that's a long, long game. So do I love the links from it? I absolutely do. Do I love the juice that comes from it? But, when I look at the guys and you look at the top end of your masterminds, these are guys that are spending money on media and figured out what their cost per case is and add fuel to the fire and it blows up. So on a B2C play, I think this is a much, much harder place to justify significant time. You like it, great. It's good for community building. It's good for a lot of things. But unless you're looking at the referrals from it, or you're a B2B organization, like somebody's outside general counsel, and you have 100 people in town that can make you money and each person's invited on, it's genius. But you know this. I mean, how many people after spending time with you are either joining a mastermind, becoming a sponsor? It's amazing. And so I love it for that. But as a straight SEO game, it's a lot of time that you're putting into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I like about doing this podcast, number one is I get to learn so much. I get to keep relevant on what's going on because marketing law firm is like trying to paint a moving train. It changes, especially what you do. On the SEO stuff, it's really just, it changes like the weather. And so I like it for that reason. And I also like it for the fact that I get people will come, when they come to Pilma, they say, well, I've been following you for 2 years. I feel like I already know you. So I think it helps me get that, know you, like you, trust you element in. I don't really have to sell myself or Pilma because they kind of know who I am. They've listened to me for a year or two.
Right. So, and look, in a B2B context, it's genius. In the B2C context, it's harder in the sense that each person, if these are lawyers listening, any of these lawyers could be coming to could come to one of your AI summits. They come to the main summit. They can become a mastermind member. It could be a virtual person. There are a lot of places that they can spend money in a good way when it comes to and get great value from it. When it comes to the B2C lawyer, I think it's harder. I think that's, again, it can be done, but if you took all of that time and put that into something else, would it be a better ROI? Again, also, do you love it? So my law partner, Dave, he's a white collar guy. I gave him a podcast and I said, look, in the white collar space, it's all about referrals. And he did 3 of them. And if you look on Spotify, there are 3 podcasts from like 2019, and nobody's ever done one since. So if you have the drive, I think it's an amazing tool. It can do great work, and there are positives to it, but you can also, I think, you need to have a sort of a plan behind it unless you just really love it. Again, plenty of examples of PI lawyers that have done well from it. But if you actually went and said how many, again, very hard to attribute anything, but I think it would be harder to attribute. But if you're a 25-year-old PI lawyer, I've seen this before, where you're working at a firm, you don't have a marketing budget, all you have is your sweat equity, and you start interviewing people, great lawyers from around the country, and then you end up following one of those AAJ tracks and becoming the trucking expert or whatever it is. You can build a tribe and a following and network in a way that you can't any other way.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, man. Anything else before we finish up today?
No. Look, I think I just caution people that they need to balance what makes money from what the shiny objects are. They always have, and it's not that you shouldn't be there. It's not saying you shouldn't do it, but you need to account for what's going to make you money in the next 24 months. And, as people are, and that the way we search is not necessarily when we spend our time buying media, let's say, in an urban media station. That's not your core buddies that you hang out with necessarily. Yeah. And because of that, the fact that you're playing around with ChatGPT doesn't necessarily mean that they are. And so understand where are your clients coming from, and knowing don't forget about that, while at the same time, you always want to see what's next. It's like R&D, making sure you allocate some money, but making sure you also don't go all in on this shiny object, because that doesn't usually end well.
If anybody wants to get up with you, Seth, what's the best way? Your company?
I'm everywhere, right? We got BluShark out there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Would love to join you anywhere. And I'll leave you with this. I've found there's a whole community out on LinkedIn. Again, it's a B2B community, but looking at areas where the LinkedIn algorithm, which I say that because it's a good place to connect, is so desperate for content that when you post, it does very well. Again, B2C lawyer, you need consumers, not the B2B part. But we were talking about what do you do and where do you find people? Looking at going back to and landing the plane with planting your flag where there's less competition, finding out where you can get share of voice. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much. I don't know when this is going to air, probably after our AI conference, but looking forward to seeing you there. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success. Take care, my friend.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.